Well, hello all. I want to offer each of you a warm welcome to our January Mistech webinar. And for me, this is a cold January day. And for some of you, the cold is much more severe than it is for me here in Boston, where we're expecting another 4 inches of snow tonight. Hooray. I will open today's webinar with what is known as the social motto. The healthy social life is found when in the mirror of each soul, the whole community finds its reflection. And when in the community, the virtue of each individual is living. Some of you who've been listening to Mary Stuart Adams recently, such as this morning, she's been speaking about how today, and it's just beginning right now, the new moon has begun, and it is passing by Mars, Venus, Sun, and Mercury. I'm thrilled to have as our speaker today someone who pays attention to these celestial movements and their effects here on Earth. Donna LaPre has been led by karma and her conviction that art, science, and the spiritual are all necessary for holistic living. This conviction has overflowed into her work as well. Donna works a small farm that produces, well, let's call it aromatic um, and medicinal plants from which she creates various skincare and perfume products. And I've got some up here on my shelf next to me. Um, in her work, she has learned Goethean observation to couple with anthroposophical medicine to form a threefolded initiative that she named Tender Flower. Donna also paints, practices eurythmy, and occasionally offers classes and talks. In fact, not too long ago, she was over in Romania. It happens to me that whenever she is not doing any of these above that I just listed, she happens to be listening in on a webinar or online class or study group that I happen to be on. We cross paths a lot, and it's wonderful. I've gotten to know Donna quite well over these past 2 years. So I can say that because it seems every one of those that I join, Donna has shown her dedication, and I must say it's quite impressive. Before I turn this over to her, I just want to remind you all that our 10th annual Mistech Conference will be online again this year from August 6th to the 9th. And our theme will be Becoming Conscious in the Etheric Realm. And for more information on this conference, we'll be posting it soon on our website, mistech.org. So with that, I'll turn this over to you now, Donna, and let me know when you want the slides up.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for having me. A wonderful introduction. And I would like to invite everybody to wish Andrew a happy birthday. It's his birthday today. Yes. So this talk is kind of a birthday present for Andrew. This is the first time I've ever spoken with such a large group of people. And I usually avoid being recorded. I'm not crazy about it. I work usually with very small, intimate groups of people. The most recent is a group of people I've worked online with and in person in Romania on biodynamics. So I wanted to begin by acknowledging that we have just entered the new moon in Capricorn and the sun today in Capricorn. And what is Capricorn? It is, in eurythmy, we look at it as a planetary sphere where the overarching gesture is thought returns to the external world. We have an idea and we're going to do it in the outer world. And there's this beautiful gesture of the sound, which is a consonant. All the zodiacal sound gestures relate to consonants. And the gesture for Capricorn is the L. And the L, to me, is like the archetypal plant gesture. It goes through the entire seasons, from darkness into light. And you can feel this moving up, and this opening, and coming back down. So we go through the seasons, but we also go through the life of the plant. And I'd like to begin this. I thought about using the Capricorn verse, but I really like this verse that was given to the young doctors, and it's also applicable for the farmers. And I'm just going to speak it and ask you to pay attention to the feelings or the images that come up. I'm not going to put a slide up, so for you to read it, just listen. The higher deities live in wisdom. The lower deities live in love. From wisdom to love, from love to wisdom. So, I don't know what impression you have of that, but I get this feeling of this kind of breathing exchange from one to the other and back up in this kind of spiral. What I wanted to focus on today was that biodynamics is primarily a path of the will. And I'll speak a little bit about that. This is a very mixed audience. We have some people who have been much longer biodynamic practitioners than I am. I saw in the audience list, and people who are very interested and don't know and want to get started. So what I want to give is, I'm not going to go into all the details of the preparations. I will speak about them some, but you can find all kinds of literature on this. I want to speak more about what you'll be in for, giving you a bigger picture with some insights I have gleaned from working with them, so you get an orientation. What is the weight of this work? What does it do? So biodynamics is a path of the will, and I mean not the willful will, but we learn to develop a will that's aligned to spiritual will, spiritual law, spiritual forces. We can think about a garden, we can daydream, but it will never get made. A farm will never happen unless you go out there and you work. And it's interesting, I think in the terms of anthroposophy, biodynamics is still really not very well understood. It may be a way to grow food, do something nice for the earth, that kind of thing. But it's actually, I find, the most esoteric course of lectures Steiner ever gave. Why? It's the most spiritual, precisely because it has the deepest physical application. And as we go through, you'll see why I say this, I hope. The transformation of the substance of the earth. This is really a lofty proposition. How do we do this? There are many ways, and I'm going to go from looking at what's closest to hand and winding through that, and then going into more moral, spiritual aspects. Now, I won't be able to, as I said, go deeply into everything, but I want to build this picture of opportunities so that you can see what's going on, I hope. So what's closest to hand? The obvious. Us, human beings. We play a central role in this. We have usually, if we want to start a farm or make a garden, we have a material objective, and we could also have a spiritual ideal. especially if we're going to do biodynamics. Then we have the land that we're working with. And then we have pathways of learning and approach, because you can enter this from a lot of different points of, activity. All of this, all of these three things set the transformative activities in motion. So in the material objective, we're going to be raising food, medicine, fiber, maybe flowers if you have a flower farm. That's kind of medicine for the soul. Then what's our highest spiritual ideal? Is it a what, a who? What are you calibrating your work towards? What are you aiming towards? Because this is going to come towards you. So you have to think about that. You have, yourself. You have the land. This is in the present. The spiritual ideal is something coming towards us from the future, and maybe connecting to something from the past. And we have to question how and where the produce of our growing will go. Who and where is our community? What is our highest spiritual ideal? If we look carefully at nature, we can see that nature is designed as a community of reciprocity and symbiosis. And it might not look the same as what we imagine human reciprocity. There are things that happen of life and death. This is, animals, plants, minerals. It's not quite the same, but you look at, especially the way plants grow. Of course, they feed us, they feed animals, they make it possible to breathe, but they tend to form these wonderful little communities with other plants. We have communities of people who support us, interact with what we produce. And then we have communities of non-earthly beings. We have elementals and we have spiritual beings. We can see that community and relationship is really at the heart of everything we're going to do. And this is really important to remember. We're ready for slide 1, Andrew.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Just a minute. Let me slide that open there. And here we go. Share.
And I am looking at my notes because this is a big lecture. Not lecture, but presentation.
Okay.
It's not really a lecture.
Here we go.
Okay. Karl Koenig, who is called Koenig, he initiated the Camp Hill movement. He was a doctor. He was a social therapist. He deeply believed in and supported agriculture. He had a really good handle on many aspects of it, quite profound. Also, what I consider his biggest work is penetrating the calendar of the soul. And biggest in addition to the healing that he effected with communities of people that were, special needs. His equation of challenge to us, I see, the health question is a question of nutrition. The nutrition question is a question of agriculture. And the agriculture question is a social question. Okay. I'm going to leave you to ponder that, and then I'm going to go through these. So how do we approach the land? We have to be, you can take the slide away, Andrew. Thank you. With the land, we have to assess, physical things, the sun and shade, the size, the vegetation, the quality, what's there, the animal life, what else? Soil, water, if it's flat, rolling, open, forested, the surrounding landscape too. So all of these things Steiner goes into detail in his course of lectures, and they're available in a book. And my suggestion is, if you want to understand biodynamics, you really do need to read the agriculture course lectures, which in another way of naming it, the spiritual foundations of agriculture. They are not easy to penetrate. There are many study groups now that you can get a little better footing in them, but you really do need to read them, study them, question into them, read every single word carefully. That's one of the big keys. Read everything carefully as if it really matters. It's not just an aside. So that's one thing. So we have this land, and then we need to imagine, along with the physicality of this land, what's possible here. We could also deepen this quest with a more sensitive imagination to something that is of unbornness. Peter Zelg just gave a lecture, which I'll have to watch the recording of this unbornness, Ungeborenheit. And this, in a sense, refers to the pre-birth world, where we are before we incarnate. Somewhere here, we were schooled in our tasks before we came into a baby body. So if we are sensitive, we can even just try to imagine what tasks were we given in this life? And then how would that meet what Steiner calls the individuality that will form of this farm or garden we will work with biodynamically? So how do these come together? Another way to think about this I being, this individuality of the farm or garden, is the genius of the place. That's a term that's been used. Okay, so from there, we go to the ways we might approach. I would say Goethean science is very important because it leads us into a different way of thinking, a different way of observation that moves along with the processes of life. So imbues it with feeling and an understanding of metamorphic processes. This is very important. If we look at the plant, if we look at the animal, it's a different level, a little bit different way that it happens. And the human being, another different level, different way that it happens. Okay. Then we have this whole cycle of the year rhythm, which has manifold opportunities to experience in great nuance etheric forces, astral forces, far more than eat asparagus in the spring, leaves fall in the fall. This is old information. We need to find new ways to penetrate through nature. We have esoteric cosmology. How did the universe form? The macrocosmic evolution picture, very important. The ethers, the elements, the elementals, zodiacal and planetary forces. Then we have maybe the spiritual science of nutrition, chemistry, anthroposophical medicine, social arts, and threefolding. So I would say, what if, when you're thinking about beginning biodynamics, or I'll speak about if you already are, one thing that's really important is to become a little more well-rounded. We might have an affinity. Oh, I really want to learn about the elementals, so, and then you ignore everything else. But well, maybe you could begin with that. And there are other things you have an affinity with. But what don't you like? What is hard for you? maybe that's a good idea to try to learn something about that too. Bring balance into your being. Okay. I'm kind of old school about biodynamics because I really like following what Steiner said and opening that up further and seeing where that takes me. And so far, it has not done me wrong. So I begin with the compost. We have the compost that is infused with special preparations that undergo a rhythmic process, and they join the etheric and the astral world together by using plants and, in most cases, except for two, an animal sheath. There are two preparations that don't use that. They use the atmosphere and the earth, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But the compost is a little bit, it's a special kind of manuring. It's nutrition for the soil. It's nutrition for the elementals. You can have animal manures, you can have vegetative manures, and compost manures. And there are different ways you can do the compost. But for me, the compost is essential. This is what the macrocosmic and microcosmic preparations, the horn manure and horn silica, work with. And let's see, it's in lecture 5, where Rudolf Steiner details the preparations. And he says, it's a question of infusing the manure with living forces, which are more important to the plants than material forces, the mere substances. This is really the thing. We are talking with living forces. This is what we're trying to understand. There are people who go into biodynamics, they focus on the substance, maybe microorganisms. This is not the, you can do this with all kinds of other forms of agriculture, with plant cultivation. You don't need biodynamics to explore those. That's not what it's about. Regenerative agriculture is not the same, neither is permaculture. These are like the material stepchildren, you could say, of biodynamics. And I don't mean that harshly. They have wonderful things to offer, ways of thinking. However, biodynamics is singular. There is nothing else like this. It is something new. When I make a compost heap, it's just such a wonderful thing. I use hay that I cut from my own land. And manure, I do have to get that from a friend because the cows next door are gone, the land sold. And plants, excess plant material, there's lots of it, compost from the kitchen. This all goes into what I use to grow vegetables. I do compost for the medicinal plants a different way. And I'm not going to talk about that here. But when I make the compost heap, I've always had this feeling that it's like the future earth. It's almost like a living thing. And I don't mean, yes, it helps create the future. It helps to keep the earth going hopefully as long as it needs to fulfill its mission. But it's really more for the next stage of evolution, after we are no longer Earth as we know it. We become something else. Okay, now, one thing I noticed that people have all kinds of different ways of placing the preparations into the compost pile. I just follow them in the order that Steiner gave. Why not? And he was very careful about his order. We have yarrow that is paired with a stag bladder. Maybe some people are saying yuck. Well, I did too in the beginning, but I'll tell you a little bit why it makes sense. Chamomile with a cow intestine, stinging nettle, the sheath is the earth. Oak bark, a skull, like a cow skull, great. Horse, maybe sheep. I don't think anything else is good. I wouldn't do pig, or definitely not any other animal. Dandelion goes into the cow mesentery, which is part of the abdominal cavity. Around, there's like an apron thing and a ruffle. And so this is there. It's called the inner heaven sometimes, this area. So this is a very important thing to know about it. And then the valerian, it's just simply the pressed juice of the blooms. The sheath is the atmosphere, because valerian is all about warmth. Now, what's going on? All of these preparations relate to a planet. They do have something to do with the 7 life processes. And there's a lot you could say they have to do with, and I'm including the sun as a planet in it's not a directly made into a compost preparation, but the sun is involved as well as the earth. The earth is not a planet that's included directly. However, if you really understand the earth, it's all the planets. It's all the planets together. So what has the planetary spheres that have come to rest in the earth, and the planetary spheres the earth will become in the future. Then we have horsetail. That's an additional preparation that can be used, and that's mostly used for regulating moon moisture. It can help if there's excess. It can help if there's a drought. Can also regulate the moisture in a compost pile. But all the other basic preparations that you put into the heap, the reason they are paired with specific animal sheaths is because this animal and this particular sheath has a relationship to it in its substance and processes. So there are chemical affinities, but the forces affinities are the most important. So for now, because, to give an in-depth talk about the preparations would be maybe a couple days long. And, but just understand this principle of like to like. We're looking for affinities. That is what brings things together. Okay, the horn manure is really directed towards telluric processes, the earth. We've got calcium processes, and we think about the roots, the lower parts of the plant. This is put in a cow horn, and that means cow, female, and buried in the winter, dug up in the spring to be used. Then we have the horn silica. This is ground up quartz if you have a clay soil, ground up feldspar if you have sandy soil. And this is buried in the summer and dug up in the autumn. And this is more a cosmic silica process, whereas the horn manure is the calcium. It's more related to the earth. The horn silica is related more to nutrition, the horn manure fertility, the cosmic silica, the upper parts of plants and the atmosphere. And one thing that Steiner says about it is it harmonizes deformations on the physiological level. I think that's very important. And as Hugh Courtney used to lament, horn silica is little used or understood in the United States, much to the detriment of people working with biodynamic preparations. I really valued Hugh Courtney's insights, his way with preparations. I have not experienced anything like that since. So the compost, if we're speaking about affinities, it brings humus conditions to the soil. And this speaks to the plants. Why? Because the plants are vegetative. Humus is a kind of a vegetative substance. It's not mineral. It's not plant-like. It's in between. So you can see it speaks to the plants, it speaks to the soil. And the plants, when they decay, form humus. And then we have earthworms that eat these plants and give their castings, which also lends to the humus. So you can see this connection. This is what we're looking for, these interstitial connections with everything we do with biodynamics. Goethean observation will help us to be able to do that, because everything happens in what we can't really see. But Goethean observation, developing our thinking and our perception with this science, helps us to see what we can't see. The horn preparations, after you have your compost down, they're applied in succession. Horn manure in the late afternoon before sunset, horn silica the next morning, preferably an hour before sunrise. Why? Yes. Sorry, Andrew. Yes, and they're stirred for an hour. And I'm going to talk about the stirring for a little bit. Yes, again, it's nice to have help, but you've got to have a strong stirring arm to do this stuff. And that takes a while to build up. But there's this whole daily kind of breathing of the soul of the earth. It's not like a lung breathing, it's a soul breathing of the elementals and the etheric forces. So in-breath starts happening around 3 in the afternoon, comes in, and then early in the morning, it starts breathing out again. So if we want the telluric forces of the horn manure, we want to have them ride in on the in-breath. And then in the morning, we want the out-breath to carry the silica up into the atmosphere with the dew rising. And the bird song. The bird song is also part of this. So this is partly how it gets distributed. And the elementals are bearing these things. They love it. And it's wonderful after you apply these things to feel into it. What's happening here? Always to pay attention to what subtle thing has changed. When we stir, we do this in a vortex. And a vortex, in the bucket, we use warm water, and I'll talk about that a little bit. We use a bucket. I have a nice ceramic crock. That's ideal. Rainwater that's warmed is the best. Well water is fine too. Otherwise, you might have to get some spring water if you have an urban garden, something that's purer. The vortex is like a lemniscate, but you have to imagine it in a different way. We go clockwise, and we start. I like to start at the outer and bring it into the center. You get this wonderful little whirlpool. It becomes very tight. You feel, this force pulling it in. Get this tight little whirlpool. And then what's really hard is reversing in the center and moving it back out. Everybody has trouble with this. It's difficult to do, but that way you get it back out to the periphery. So we're making this expansion, contraction movement. Periphery to center, center to periphery. And this is a macrocosmic rhythm of involution, evolution. When I was showing this in Romania, I was talking about this, and my nephew who came with me said, well, could you think about this like a yin-yang thing? And I said, you could, but that's putting a concept on it. My way is to go into the activity of doing this and think about it and experience what's really happening. What's happening there? That way, if you think about it abstractly and you try to fit it, yin yang. There's a gap between what you're doing and what you're thinking, where we don't want to have these gaps. We want to see every process unfold to the next and to be able to follow it. Why do we warm the water? As our cosmos evolved, we began with warmth. Warmth. This is something I realized. I've never seen anybody talk about this. But warmth, then we come to light and air. Air condenses to water. Water condenses to the solid form. And so then we have to move back out. And it's very interesting. If you're stirring the horn manure, you notice that the water becomes more turgid when you're stirring. It starts with all these little specks of the horn manure floating around in the water, and then they start to get kind of colloidal, and you have this substance which is very different, and you can feel, like I feel something like maybe a memory of the stars and the zodiacal forces and the planets coming into being. So it's really a wonderful thing. It is not a time to think about maybe what you're going to have for dinner or other things on your mind. I mean, it could be hard. It's a kind of meditation. So yes, in the beginning, you might have those thoughts. But if you really give yourself over to this, that you can experience the most wonderful things, I promise you. Now, so this is a rhythm we're doing. Steiner said something very important. Rhythm is life. Yes, because this has to do with the etheric. The etheric is the life forces. Now, I don't have time to do that. I want to get into our transformation opportunities. Okay, first of all, I spoke a little bit about the physical, about how it's the most spiritual thing we do, actually, because it is physical. And if you understand the limb organization, this is the most spiritual part of our human organization. We have the limbs, we have the rhythmic system kind of in the middle, the heart rhythm and the respiration, they work together. And we have the head, our oldest part. And our brain is very physical. There's a correlation between the brain and the intestines. It's kind of as above, so below, as below, so above. This is why we use intestines for the chamomile preparation, for example. Right, chamomile used herbally is for digestion. However, what happens with our digestion? It affects our thinking forces, right? So there are many, many things I could talk about, and I have to stop myself. But just to give you a taste, to get you intrigued. Okay, the big thing I think about our labor, our work, is along with our thinking, our moral impulses, and our feeling, and I don't mean, well, it can be emotions, but a higher state of feeling when we can feel the interiority of things. We can feel the interiority of the day, of the atmosphere, of a plant, of an animal, a mood. We create elemental beings with what we do, with what we make, every single thing, not just what we grow, but what we make. Do we do that for good or do we do that for ill? The moral and soul spiritual constitution of the human affects the qualities of food, medicine, and anything that can be made. So Steiner is very clear about this in the medical lectures, that a preparation made by one person can have healing effects because of that person and their spiritual knowledge. And if you think about it in planting, you can take a piece of garden or farm section, rows, and you can give the same batch of seeds to several different people and have them all plant a row. All of the plants will come up and behave and grow a bit differently, even treated with the same conditions. So we do have an effect. I used to give more practical gardening classes, kind of broaching the subject of other things going on. And I used to say, yeah, whatever you're thinking about and feeling right now as you're planting this or working in the garden, you're going to eat that. And so many people, it's like, uh-oh, I'm caught, like, uh-oh. I could see them thinking about, times where they were out there working in a not very soul hygienic kind of way. And yeah, we eat this. And this is a really big thing to think about, how food is produced, how it's sourced. Again, I just found this recently, Steiner talking about how morality isn't so much the what, it's the how things are done, how things are made, how they're sourced. This is really important. So I think this brings it into a different perspective. Now, with the plants, we also have this opportunity, like with what we plant, if we're planting for beneficial insects, maybe for fragrance, this affects the elementals. The elementals are beings of nature. They're the forces of nature. They're they are of the etheric and a little bit of the lower astral world. There are many different classes of elemental beings, but the ones that work with the plant life, those are etheric. And so when we're having insects in the garden, insects are a stage of life that's related to plants, but just becoming on the way to becoming animals. There's something in between there. But for a long time, I had this feeling, this image, this impression that beneficial insects or insects in general reflected something about elementals. And I was very excited when I read Carl Koenig's insight that indeed he thought so too. So I find this very interesting. So one way you can assess the quality of the elemental life with your growing area is, what kind of insects do you have? Do you have ones that tear everything apart? Do you have lots of butterflies, lots of bees, lots of wonderful pollinators? These are things to think about, and you can get maybe some ideas about what needs to change in the plant life, the life forces, maybe your own astral forces. Agriculture is the foundation of all economic activity. So if you take up this thought, you see, wow, what an opportunity we have here for good or for ill. And it's really the realist aspect of material Maya. There's no other place where we confront the limitations of nature and what nature can do with agriculture. And humans are the only dwellers of Earth that can create for the future. The animals, plants, and minerals can't do it. So this is a huge responsibility, but it's also an opportunity, and I think it's so overlooked. Again, agriculture is treated like dirt. It's gold. So we talked about the biodynamic compost, transforming the soil. We have the preparations, which transform the relationships between nature beings, the humans and the spiritual, in very particular ways. The plants, the animals, and the humans can become more connected with their spiritual archetypes. I don't mean Jungian archetype. I mean these living, possibilities, the potentials of all forms, all lawful, healthy forms that a plant or an animal or a human being could take. So these exist in the spiritual world. These, I don't know, it's kind of like a plasma to me, like a kind of seed plasma. That's how I think of it. Now we're ready for slide 2. Eating is a transformational process. Right in the human digestion, one of the most miraculous things takes place. We completely destroy the substance of what we eat and we create new forces. It completely disappears. So, one thing to think about is the effect of different food upon our mood, our thinking, our vital forces, our will. What happens when we eat sugar or potatoes or carrots? Pay attention. What happens if we eat from the grocery store or a farm or our own growing or biodynamic? Very different. Oh, no, that's not the right one. It should be, it's about food. Andrew? Nope, nope, nope.
Sorry. Okay, I'll go back that way.
Let's see. No, there's one other one. It's longer. It's the one with the most, nope, not
That's
that
it.
one. Huh, did I miss it?
I didn't get it, or I might have screwed up.
Oh no, I might have messed up. I thought I had written. Okay, so I will just have to paraphrase here, but you can find it in GA 193, Problems of Society, where Steiner talks about eating is a hidden spiritual activity, food and drinking. And he talks about how people who are not aware of the, I would say, light forces and qualities that are in substances we ingest are just devouring the spirit unconsciously.
Mhm.
It's being, tradition has you have a grace before meals, you imbue it with warmth, with gratitude, you pay attention, you eat with other people, you bring it into this communal sphere. We have to eat, unless you're the rare breatharian. I've heard there are a few. But we need to eat. So, what happens when people are taking in, gobbling the spirit unconsciously? Are they furthering anything or are they kind of killing it that way? This is a very interesting thing to ponder. And I also think about, of course, we have denatured food. You can think about that. These deformed archetypes of food. And then we have this other weird thing in the last 10 years. Foodieism became such a big thing. And I was like, oh boy. And, fermentation in this. And now we have this almost fetishistic approach to food where it's sourced in all these little flavors. And somebody has to climb to the mountain peaks of Nepal to gather this rare weed, and they have to do it by helicopter to get this, and then they sell it a little jar for $100. And wow, to me this is just like decadent. This is really decadent. So I think this takes us far away from what food is meant to be. The food we take in gives us fuel, gives us ability to think, to move, to do our work. We take in food through our perceptions. We take in sensory food. It's a different kind of digestion. So here's this whole question of what we can do in our own lives, in the growing of food, the eating of food, how we approach it. Then we come to transformation in the social realm. We have ourselves. In the etheric realm, we have our habits, our rhythms, our thinking. We have in the astral realm our soul work, our soul hygiene. How do we work to temper and moderate our instincts, our desires, our emotions. And then the spiritual, we have this opportunity for I-ness to become thou-ness. This is the work of the higher I and towards the true self. So in turn, all of these, if we work in these areas, transforming these, they in turn give transformational forces in particular ways to the elementals, other humans, the social and spiritual worlds. So you can see this is very powerful. We have the opportunity to transform our consciousness. A few hints in what I just said. We have the opportunity to transform the social economic life. If we become more conscious of our life in nature, in each other, in the spiritual world, this can be a basis for a whole new way of economic activity. Where money is not tied to labor, nor things produced only with thought of selfish gain or consolidation, hoarding capital. Money, in other words, is currency. It's an exchange of values. We assign value to things that can be had or done, goods and services. But currency, what is currency? It's like water. It should flow. It should flow. It should flow freely. So here is a huge area, and Steiner created the threefolding initiative to do it. Maybe we could contemplate ways we could support farmers. And I don't mean just buying their food or whatever they produce. Maybe we could go further than that, be a little more daring. We could, if we don't have opportunity to buy their things or we don't want them, fine. We could offer services that they might need. Farm work is all consuming. I can say this. I do it 7 days a week, even if I'm not out there actively digging, planting. In the winter, I've got to prune. I've got to check on everything out there. I don't have farm animals anymore, but there are still many, many things that need to be done. I can't just ignore it. Plus, I have to plan administrative things. I don't rest. I just change my focus of the work that I'm doing through the entire year. I've done this now for 28 years. It's a very different kind of life. But we could offer services, moral support. We could maybe help with labor, supplies, donations. What if there are farmers who are older and maybe won't keep farming, but have all kinds of knowledge, experience, or would like to do more research in particular areas and still need a way of still need an income? So these are things, these are possibilities, ways, and you might be able to think of more. But these are suggestions I would make. If agriculture is that important, and hopefully you can understand that it is, it affects the entire earth, it affects the future of the earth, it affects our well-being, nature's well-being. Why don't we get behind it? This is why I say this is a path of the will. It's a path of the will to participate in agriculture, whether you're producing or participating as supporters, as imbibers. Paul Scharf, doctor, anthroposophical doctor. He was Aaron Fried Pfeiffer's doctor. So he was pretty intimately acquainted with the correlation between the human organs, the human organization, and agriculture and the preparations. And this was a really important thing. Steiner actually originally envisioned that the medical section and the agricultural section in anthroposophy would work together, along with eurythmy. And you can see that this was there present at Koberwitz where Steiner gave his agriculture course lectures. But Paul Schorf said something I really love. He said, our World Bank should actually be a world heart bank of moral deposits. This is such a wonderful thing to think of. Another area we have where we could do transformative work is considering the plant life as an art form. For me, plants are like somewhere in between sculpture and painting and social arts. And I think you could understand the sculptural aspect depending on how we arrange plants. And the painting. Plants live in time, so it's a little bit different. But that's a sculptural form. What they give off etherically is a sculptural form, working with the astral coming in, the etheric trying to move out, radiate. They have a little kind of in and out pressure suction activity forming the plants. And so this is very sculptural. But they also affect the social realm. Why? Well, think about back what I said. They affect the human beings, but they also affect the social realm of our social realm, extended social realm of the elementals and the spiritual beings. All these forces rise from the plants back into the spiritual world. Souls incarnating out of the unbornness find pathways through the forces, find pathways to their new bodies, maybe even to their location on Earth as they're deciding. This is very mysterious and interesting to consider. Go into that. Okay, now I'm going to come to the big thing. Now we're ready for this quote from Marie Steiner. What I find as the most transformational opportunity is said right here. And I just found this quote a few days ago. I found it so wonderful. Forgiveness. Marie Steiner says, yet miracles still happen. They come about when the moral substance is so strong as to justify the miracle. What can we do to save our moral substance? We can forgive. Forgiving others for what we perceive as unfair or unjust, aberrant, and that doesn't mean allowing harm to be, continue to be inflicted. But this is one way. This is the traditional way, but it's still egocentric if you think about it. I forgive you. I forgive you. Well, what if we go a little deeper and switch that? What if we ask forgiveness innerly, usually, of the people that we think or the situations that we perceive to have caused harm? What happens? What if in another lifetime we caused harm to this person and then have reaped what has been sown in this lifetime? Or what if what has driven a person to hurt another is a social context problem, a lack of understanding or opportunity? A little bit bigger sphere. Does forgiveness free more than ourselves, the other, and beyond to the elemental and spiritual worlds? Okay, do we have this next slide that is the longer thing that Steiner wrote? Not the Geistiges Communion. Yes, okay. Surrendering himself to the supreme direction of the universe that is all around him, he can carry out in living consciousness the act of transubstantiation in the great temple of the cosmos. standing within it as one who is celebrating a sacrifice in a purely spiritual way. When man, as knowing man, summons up also powers of will and feeling, he becomes a sacrificing being. His fundamental relationship to the world rises from knowledge into cosmic ritual. This was given from the most beautiful lecture series, Man in the World of Stars. This is the lecture, and anybody who's an anthroposophist knows the significance of this date, New Year's Eve, 1922. This lecture series is divided into 2 parts: 7, the light part of the zodiac; 5, the dark part of the zodiac. I didn't get to talk about the zodiac and the planetary forces. I would like to, but we're running out of time. So going back to the first verse that I spoke, the higher deities live in wisdom. The earth has been a cosmos of wisdom. We see wisdom imbued through all of nature. The wasp that makes the net, the paper, the birds that make the nests. How did people learn to make baskets? They watched nature. Earlier peoples watched and learned from nature all the thoughts and feelings and ideas that were condensed into all the physical things we see, waiting for us to understand them. But the earth is becoming a cosmos of love. How do we refer back to that first verse. The higher deities live in wisdom, the lower deities live in love. From wisdom to love, from love to wisdom, with us in the middle, processing all of this. Sacrificing our time, our egocentric aspirations or inclinations. This is a step. This is a beginning. And now we're ready for the slide 4, the closing verse. No, slide 5. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Geistige Communion, that means spiritual communion. In earth activity draws near to me, given in substance imaged form. The heavenly being of the stars, in willing I see them transform with love. In watery life stream into me, forming me through the power of substance force, the heavenly deeds of the stars. In feeling, I see them transformed with wisdom. Again, from Man in the World of the Stars, New Year's Eve, 1922. Thank you. I already informed Andrew I need to take a 3-minute break to load the wood stove, heat the house with wood stove, and I'll be right back for question and answer, right? Is that how we do?
We'll go to Q&A next, and so go do that. And it's a bio break for anybody else that needs it. So we'll take a 3-minute break about 4:08. We'll get started with your Q&A. And if you would like to ask a question, on the bottom of your Zoom window, there should be a thing that says raise hand. And if you want to ask a question, do that. Press the raise hand and I will find you. And then I can have you speak your question to Donna. She gets back. So take a break right now, everyone, and be back in another 2.5 minutes. And thank you for all the birthday wishes, everyone.
Am I under 3 minutes?
Way under.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
So you can go throw some more wood in or go outside and chop some if you want.
Ah, it's okay. Oh, Judith Herb,
Yeah.
I loved your presentation on the chemistry.
Wasn't that something? Yeah.
Oh, it was fantastic.
For those that don't know, she gave a lecture for the natural science or webinar, and um, she did the periodic table in the most unique way. She sang it, if I could put it that way. And so it was quite something. It's we do have a question, Christos. We'll get to you in just a moment. I'll give people another 30 seconds or so to come back. And just not so much a question, Donna, but a comment. I have my biodynamic compost pile behind the shed
Huh.
because the neighbors don't want to see a compost pile.
Oh.
No, or because they think it'll smell bad or something. But the
Mm.
problem is back where it is that um, all the trees around there want their roots in the compost pile.
Yes.
So even though I dig all the time, all the roots out, it only takes them a few months to regrow their roots through the entire compost.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So I have a feeling, although I try not to do it, I might have to put some metal walls in or something, or I don't know what to try to.
Yeah, it is difficult. You can just feel how attracted the
Oh,
roots
they are.
and the gnomes are to the compost pile.
Exactly. It's just quite something. Well, let's get going. We're
Okay.
up. And so I'm going to, Christo, you're up first. And if you want to unmute yourself, that would be great. There we go.
Okay, thank you, Donna, very much for bringing the more spiritual nature, the physical aspects of biodynamics, and to draw our attention to the transformative processes both within nature and within our digestive system, and particularly within the context of the social realm. My question is anyone in the audience or yourself work with Lily Kalisko's work of potentizing the preparations? Uh,
Um,
I've I've found myself that you spoke about the importance not so much to the physical um, nourishment of the plants, but the bringing the life forces. And what I've found, which is what Lily Kalisko found, that the potency D6 of both the atmospheric and soil preparations enhances the life processes significantly, and you're working purely with those uh, ether forces, particularly in the life earth ether. So I'd be interested to know what your experience is, and it's interesting it's been overlooked for so many years.
okay. This is a really good question. Um, I do know how to potentize um, materials. I do it for some of my work. I am very familiar with Lily Kalisko's work. It was magnificent. There is somebody in the audience who has made a career potentizing the preparations, and that is Glenn Atkinson. I saw that you were there. Hi, Glenn. And but I have not done that myself, mainly because I don't have a lot of extra time. My main focus is um, doing the rhythmic processes with extracting plants for the things that I make. And this is very time consuming as well as doing the actual labor. I do it by myself. I don't have farm help. I used to have some. It's harder because of the social economic situation. It's very difficult to get people that can work seasonally. I can't supply a job year round. And younger people need to make a lot of money to live where I live. It's become prohibitive. So for these reasons, if I had more free time, I would work on all of these things. My favorite thing would be to do research. But I can't because I have to work. So it's very interesting. Maybe if I have time this year, I would explore that. So I really appreciate your question, and you might want to take a look at Glenn's work, what he's done with it. Though he does works in a different way than I would or do, but I think it's very interesting what he does.
Yeah, if I'm still unmuted, it's interesting. I think you spoke about the elementals and the creating of elementals through biodynamic processes for the future. I do draw a line in the sand where radionics is used as distinct from potentizing by hand. And the perception that it takes a lot of time is interesting because it actually saves time. In half a day or less, a few hours, you can make enough of the potentized preps. You only need, according to Ben Epler, who presented at the recent Biodynamic Research Conference in England, you only need 2 liters per hectare. You don't need to stir, which I know is very important. So the perception that it's time consuming is really not the case. It's interesting that the work of Lily Kaliska, as great as it is, and as meticulously and thoroughly and rigorously researched, is somehow overlooked. And I would ask people to begin to do it. It only takes 2.5 minutes per potentization step.
Yeah, I take your point. Let me clarify something. It's definitely not the time to potentize. It's the time to do the trials between the using the regular preparations done in the traditional way and the observance of the if we were to use the potentize. I mean, at least from my perspective, because I would want to track both of them, and this is time consuming and attention consuming, which at this very moment is difficult for me to give any more things to track and tend and keep records of. So that's my personal situation with it. But yes, you're right, it would save time. But then would you want a new person coming into it to bypass the traditional way of stirring and being able to experience these macrocosmic rhythms? First, I again would say I would prefer that people become acquainted first with how it's done one way before moving on to this next way.
All set, Christo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate what you're
Thank you.
saying. The research has been done by Lily Kaliska. Also, Ben Epler has done exhaustive replication and validation of that work. I agree. It's important as a newbie, so to speak, to actually encounter the more physical aspect. But the plants clearly, I mean, I was astounded when I did some very simple work how the plant forces are so strongly enhanced in a balanced way at the D6 potency. To me, it's just so outstandingly obvious. But I take what you're saying, and I appreciate that. If you're new to it, I wouldn't go that direction to start with.
Christo, are you aware of Dr. Ross Rentia and the Lily Kalisko Institute
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, and the work he's done, because I find some of that, I don't think anyone's ever tried to see if it applies to agriculture, but he found that with humans, the level of potency that you go to can actually change the effectiveness of this, what you're trying to apply. So when you go to D6, you get one amount of effectiveness. If you go to D more, it'll go through a phase where it becomes ineffective. You keep going and it becomes effective again. And so
Yeah.
he thought that it followed a kind of wrote a rhythmical wave in terms of becoming effective, becoming ineffective, becoming effective
Mhm.
again.
That's the case, and I won't take up too much more time. But interestingly, there's an inversion as the plant is an upside down man in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The D6 is the right potency, whereas the D30 is not the right potency.
Mhm.
But anyhow, I think it is work that's really necessary. As the hardening forces become stronger, I think
Right.
this is an antidote. And
Thank
I do have a medical background as well. All
Ah,
right, thank you very much.
wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I do completely understand, and it has inspired me. So thank you so much, Christoph.
Great.
All
You
right, we'll
know,
go over to Nancy next. Nancy,
Andrew, I see that somebody wrote in the chat much earlier than even Christo, so we don't want to ignore this person.
okay, but
Okay.
Nancy's right here with me
Okay.
off. Let's let Nancy go and I'll go get that question. Thanks.
Okay. Hi, Nancy.
Hello. What a delightful presentation and wonderful exchange. And yes, Christoph, I believe it was, we're appreciating his wonder. He describes himself as a newbie. Obviously, he's deeply immersed. But I had the same wonder too, Christoph, not from carrying it out, although I work with the biodynamics, but from looking at her art. And so that's something that is accessible to anyone, I'm sure through Ross Rentia, that could see Lily Kalisko's beautiful art. And that just inspires the soul to look at. And then also the results of the experiments of how the divine life forces are pouring in during the festivals. And I think those two things deeply impressed me. And I think, anybody could go there with the art, and then that might inspire them to further exploration in their own work of gardening. And then to you, Donna, thank you so much for this beautiful expression, very earned from years of the actual work. And I just would love for you to go back and give us a few more pictures because you touched on it when you said when we put on the silica as a spray on the land or the garden, then the spreading of it. You particularly mentioned the birds picking it up, spreading it. Could you give us a couple more of those imaginations of the gnomes or the elementals from your work? Because I found that so enriching, honey.
Ah, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I hesitated to say a lot about elementals because this is a juicy topic for so many people. I mean, we could be here for a month. Um, but I don't know. Like one thing I was thinking about, but I was trying to keep an eye on the time. Um, just like the imagination of the horn manure, for example, and the cow sitting there in the grass. It's heavy, it's doing its cud, it's very content, tasting all the forces of its environment and transforming them. Um, the way the digestive system works, it actually involves a little bit of the cow's heart forces. Just so interesting. And when this manure is excreted, a really good cow pie should have a beautiful whorl formation, a spiral. Think of the cow's horns. The cow's horns don't radiate out like the antlers of the stag. They take the forces back down in, just like the hooves draw the forces up, and they all concentrate in this four-chambered digestive system. And then it excretes this beautiful spiral. You know, you can see a really good. I used to go next door and pick up all the cow patties. The farmer said, "Help yourself," and I would hop the fence, and you can just feel, like I can always feel what the elementals that Paracelsus called the gnomes. They love this stuff, and they love the cows, and you see the birds landing on the cows. So we have all these elementals gathering around the cows and this wonderful substance, and we pack it into this spiral form, into another spiral form, and then put it in the soil. And it's just a wonderful image to make this more alive. And then with the horn silica, so in the morning, if we stir, and not in the morning, in the afternoon, we stir and spray this, or whisk it. I like to whisk it because I have, it's not a big area that I use it on. As the forces are drawing in to participate in that, and you can really feel like, or I feel this kind of joy-like sensation rising from the elemental kingdom. It's like, oh, thanks for dinner. And in the morning, yes, get out there, can be in the best air of the day, these wonderful healing forces that occur sunrise and sunset. But I like especially the sunrise. I watch the colors in the sky, these beautiful images painted in the atmosphere, the colors moving. Colors to me are more than surfaces. They're the activities of beings, deeds of light and darkness, as Goethe said. And then all this dew rising. Now, this is something I perceived even before reading anything about it. I remember someone coming over from Steiner House in London, and I was telling him about the dew and the birds, and he was astonished. He came to do some lectures here on art and architecture. And he said, "Well, Donna, you're a real anthroposophist." It was so funny. But there's something that the dew is a remnant of old Atlantis. So there's that image. You have this dew with all these colors. So what do I think of? The chemical ether, which has to do with all this different kind of shaping with color, with fragrance, separating, blending, creating new forms. This whole world of chemistry, carrying sound. It's magnificent. And the birds, listening to the birds, this is one thing I've been doing a lot. I've been going much more into and through sound. Though I realized this year in particular, the way the birds sing at different times of the year, I've always realized this, they correlate the sounds and where it registers in the continuum, I would say, of forces connected with plants has to do precisely with the part of the plant that's forming at that time, from its growing and through its withering. And in the spring, we have the little spring frogs that are part of this chorus, as well as the birds. And in the late summer and autumn, we have the crickets and the grasshoppers that are participating on the downside. It's totally fascinating. So every little thing that goes on out there brings us in there into the world of understanding nature. The most beautiful thing, you know.
So, Donna, can I get us over to another question here?
Sure.
Are you, sorry, Nancy, that okay? You done?
Yes.
No. Okay. So Carol asked about stinging nettle and about the production or diminishing of milk in sheep. Do you know anything about uh, that
Oh,
using the BD spray based on stinging nettle?
well, can you say that again? Because let
Well,
me try to
I'll read
understand the
it.
question.
I'll read it. She says, yes, Andrew, like in homeopathy, stinging nettle can either help produce milk or diminish milk production in sheep.
Oh,
P.S. Depending on the potency used.
okay. Okay. So I didn't know that about using it for milk production in sheep. It can be used as a rennet to make cheese. However, nettles, um, the forces of nettles can actually increase essential oil content and aroma and other aspects, nutritive aspects of the plant. My production garden, I created, it's got a lot of aromatic plants, but medicinal. And actually, within that, taking up Steiner's idea of the aromatic meadow, and the elementals that are attracted to it, helping the whole farm organism. And within this production garden, I made a separate little aromatic garden row. And to my astonishment, I have my original nettles patch and a little tiny one somewhere else. This brand new nettles patch started just a few feet away in bright sun. It's the most stingy, fiery nettles patch of all of them. And I just had a good laugh about that. And I thought, oh. So this is what I mean. The transformation of the land is real. The elementals do some very interesting things when they are content. So I would say, that's what I understand about nettles, and you could see that it does lend something to the qualities of other substances.
Okay. Could you put the website into the chat if people want to explore what you have to offer?
Oh, sure. And
While
there
you're
was
putting
there
it
was a
in,
question that was
oh, I
written at,
missed one.
okay, Leslie Seaver, I think.
Oh, I don't see it.
She asked about whether it was possible to work as a solo practitioner if you needed a community. Like if you were just by yourself on the farm. I don't know what happened to it, but
I don't see it. That's
it was in the
interesting.
question and answer. Let's see. Yeah, Leslie Sievert. How important is community in the practice of biodynamics? Is it okay to begin as a solo practitioner? If you're still there, and I see another question too, which from Tracy.
I did not see those
If you
questions.
you can start, of course, you don't need a community of humans to come into your garden while you're beginning. You have the community of elementals to learn about and the community of spiritual beings if you want to go that far. But there always will be a community of humans. You just have to think about how it is. Now we have a lot of online communities, not as wonderful as the old ways where, your neighbor down the road, you traded your carrots for your potatoes or got seed, or you talk about what's going on with your cows or your horse or your pigs, your chickens. But people are still there. There is a community. It just have to figure out the form that is possible. That or find a new way to create a form to attract community. So yes.
And then there's this question from Tracy: have you explored the Christ impulse in your farm? And if so, what did you notice?
Mhm. That's a really deep
Yes,
and
it should.
meaningful question, and I appreciate that. I will answer this way. Many years ago, when I could sense somewhere behind a veil that there were elemental beings and spiritual beings, yet I felt this veil, and I was trying to understand the inner life of nature, and I would see things, activities. Maybe I would plant a plant in a place that wasn't great, and the next morning it would be dug up. Well, of course, it was animals digging, but who instigated the animals? The elementals. So then if I planted them in a better spot, no problem, no digging up. So I learned that lesson. But I always thought, well, here's nature, there's the spiritual world, and I had this question: how and where do they intersect? This was my question. This was my burning question. And I had learned a long time ago, and I meant to bring this up, the transformational aspect of asking questions, being patient, not expecting an answer like somebody talking in your head or an immediate answer. It might take 7 years. It might take 14 years. It might take 28 years. Right. It might take the next lifetime. But I had an experience. Let's see. About 7 years after I asked that question, I had an experience, and then I understood. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
Okay. I'm going to make a comment. I don't know if it's related, but when you were talking about the vortex, I've been recently rereading the Temple Legend, and Steiner relates a legend that Mani taught his followers about the kingdom of dark and the kingdom of light, and the kingdom of dark was, and they came to the kingdom of light and they saw it and they were so impressed and everything, they decided to do what they do, which would be to conquer it. And so they tried, but nothing came of it. And so then it came to the kingdom of light to try to do something, what to do with this kingdom of dark. And they gave of their own. They sacrificed their own light, which is us humans, according to Mani, is what was sacrificed. And what was interesting is between heaven and earth, there was this vortex. And into the vortex, death fell. Now, death, when you read what Steiner says, is intimately related to life.
Yes.
That only through the death can we get the life.
Exactly.
And so when you were talking about making this vortex and then coming back out the other way, I had this picture of exactly what Mani described. So thank you.
Isn't that wonderful to make that connection? And now think of the compost heap, where we take decaying things, dying things, which give new life. And the horn silica and the horn preparation and this kind of sandwich.
Right. And as you pointed out, this cosmic connection to this earthly connection, where the earthly is destroyed in the digestive system, it's transformed, maybe is a better word, but
yeah, it's transformed, but it disappears. It disappears. It's not conserved. It doesn't correlate to the conservation of energy law that the physicists dreamed up. This is not true in the human digestive system.
So these polarities meeting, and
right.
It's quite fascinating what you brought. Thank you so much, Donna.
You're welcome, Andrew. Thank
And
you.
I'll make one last comment as well before we close, and that is that those of us like me who are forced through their work to spend hours and hours in front of a screen, I find that my gardening work, and like you said, I'm just recently been out trimming my fruit trees for the winter, and so on. It's a year-round job if you do it. But I think it is one of the most wonderful, in addition to eurythmy, counterbalances for living in our technological age. So thank you very much, Donna, for bringing this. And I wish you all the joys of the coming spring, but enjoy winter while we still have it. And um, so I'll say goodbye. And I don't know, Donna, if you have any last words.
Just thank everybody for their warm-hearted presence. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.